Hi everyone, this is WIS, otherwise known as What I've Seen, What I've Skipped. This is a monthly video that I'm going to be doing in which I summarize the new movies that I've seen, or at least movies that I've seen for the first time, each month. And I was inspired to do these by Puckbon007, who does a similar video, only he basically goes through every movie that he sees, and he does it weekly, anything within a given week that he sees. So yeah, a little different, but kind of similar. So I'm going to be going through, first of all, the new movies that I watched on DVD, and then the theatrical films that I saw in a given month, and then a couple of selections of movies, new movies that I ended up not seeing, just to give you an idea of what my movie-going month was like. I'm starting with November because I moved into my new place then, and this is sort of like a new era in movie going with me, getting used to the area, going to places that have DVDs locally in this place where I'm living now. Also, just acclimating myself with the nearby theaters and things. I take public transportation everywhere, so I need to learn new bus lines and things like that. So in November, first, Magic Mike XXL, which, funnily enough, is something that EJ, Puckbon007, recently saw and didn't like at all. And I didn't really think that much of the first Magic Mike. It had its moments, but it wasn't really something that I thought was really compelling. And this one, even less so. The funny thing is that although Steven Soderbergh directed the first movie, he supposedly retired to not make feature films anymore. But he's not simply one of the producers on this movie, he was also the director of photography and the editor as well. He does those things under pseudonyms on the films that he directs himself, and he did so with this movie as well. I really like some of the actors in this movie, but all in all, not all that interesting, although I did find a couple of dance sequences pretty fun. And I think Amber Heard in particular, she's basically the one who gets the big dance from Channing Tatum at the end of the movie, and she sells her surprise and shock and delight at what he does very, very well. I really like Amber Heard a lot. She's a really good actress, and she's very pretty as well. Also, EJ mentioned the scene where Channing Tatum dances by himself in his workshop, and that's also a really good scene. Aside from that, didn't really care for it one way or the other. Then I saw Cop Car, which is an indie thriller by Jon Watts. Jon Watts is going to be doing the next Spider-Man solo movie with Tom Holland. This is the new era of Spider-Man movies that will be more directly connected with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and is going to have him appearing in Marvel movies released by Disney, and also possibly other Marvel characters that normally appear in the MCU being in Spider-Man movies. So Cop Car basically is a very, very small-scale thriller. It involves a police officer played by Kevin Bacon, who really is doing a lot of shady business out in the middle of the woods somewhere, and he leaves his car basically, but when he returns he finds it gone, and it turns out a couple of 10-year-old kids have found it and found the keys and drove it off, which is unfortunate for him because he's got a body in the trunk that he's trying to dispose of. I didn't, the setup was fun, but the movie itself I wasn't all that crazy about. It's a very, very small scale movie, not a whole lot to it. In fact, it completely wastes Carmen Manheim. Who knows why they needed Carmen Manheim to play what turns out to be basically a very inconsequential character. The guy in the trunk, I know I've seen this guy in movies before, but I'm not really familiar with him. Anyway, this is just sort of basically a demo for Jon Watts, I think, or at least it will serve as a demo, showing that he is competent and able to make a movie technically well, and so that's one of the reasons why they gave him the Spider-Man job. But all in all, it's not one that I would recommend. I saw a comedy called Home Sweet Hell, which is directed by a guy named Anthony Burns. I'm not really familiar with his work. It is a dark comedy with Patrick Wilson as he basically works as the manager of a furniture store in a small town, and he's married to Katherine Heigl, who is very demanding and controlling, and her father owns the store, so he's sort of like, you know, trapped in his job and his marriage there. And he begins having an affair with his a new hire, a girl played by Jordana Brewster from the Fast and Furious movies, and that gets him into a lot of trouble with her. And when with his wife, and when she finds out about him, she says, "I think you just better kill her." So yeah, dark comedy, sort of in the vein of Very Bad Things, with you know, Christian Bale and Jeremy Piven and a couple other guys back in '98. Again, not a movie that I would really say, hey, you ought to check this thing out. It's okay, but nothing great. There's a satirical comedy called They Came Together, which is basically a parody of romantic comedies, directed by David Wayne, who did, let's see, he did Role Models, and he did something very popular, Wet Hot American Summer, I think. He's a member of The State. That's where I know him from. He was part of that that 10-member comedy group on MTV called The State, which I really liked. Anyway, They Came Together stars Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler. And to be honest, I really don't remember a whole lot about this movie. It was a couple of months ago that I saw it. But it wasn't anything that I would go, oh my goodness, it was so funny, oh my goodness, it was so clever. It was fine. And there's, you know, a lot of raunchy humor and innuendo and what have you, and also some of the situations are extra silly, sort of a Naked Gun style rom-com, I guess you could say. All in all, not something that I would say, yeah, excellent. No, not really. And then I saw, finally, the final new movie that I saw in November on DVD was called The Overnight. It's an indie comedy with Adam Scott as the main character and Taylor Schilling as his wife. And they arrive they move to a new area in Los Angeles, and they immediately get to know the Jason Schwartzman character and his wife. And they invite him over, the both of them over to their house for dinner, and then it just sort of like, the celebrating and the partying just goes on, and they sort of do more extreme, odd things into the night. This one was pretty good. I enjoyed this. Very, very strange movie. All the little twists and turns, but nothing like super hardcore or anything like that. It's just all sort of, you know, it's one of those comedies of embarrassment, where it's just like the humor is supposed to come out of how embarrassing some of the situations are that this couple that just moved there get themselves into. Not normally my cup of tea, but this one was okay. It's directed by a guy named Patrick Bryce. Not really familiar with him. So that was DVDs. For theatrical movies, saw the Peanuts movie directed by Steve Martino. That was okay. I found that the Red Baron sequences, the Snoopy fantasy sequences in which he's the World War I flying ace fighting the Red Baron, really stopped the movie cold. There's a plot involving Charlie Brown trying to impress the red-haired girl by partnering with her on a school project, and then, you know, things just sort of get out of hand and his priorities get all messed up. And then something really terrible happens to him, and he's very sad about it. And then it shifts over into a fantasy sequence. It was just like, I don't want to see any of this. I want to get back to the Charlie Brown plotline. Anyway, I've been a big fan of the Peanuts comic strip, you know, since I was a little kid. A lot of those characters, so I was curious about the movie. It was okay. You know, I wasn't crazy about it. Then there's Spectre. Spectre, of course, is latest Bond movie with Daniel Craig, and is again directed by Sam Mendes, who did Skyfall. Spectre's a terrible movie. Really didn't like it at all. Everyone, at least Daniel Craig and some of the other principal people in this movie, really act like they don't care about this movie at all. And anyway, Skyfall made an excellent capper to the Daniel Craig series. They really shouldn't have made a fourth movie. They should have left it off with Skyfall. And one of the reasons for this is because normally, you know, Bond, he ends up connecting with an attractive lady who ends up assisting him and defeating the bad guys, and that happens in this movie too. Skyfall is different in the sense that his leading lady is not a young woman, a young sexy woman, but his boss, Judi Dench, playing M. And, you know, it's just like, once you go there, it's just sort of hard to top that. You just, anything, you know, any other sort of going back to the usual Bond movie just seems like steps backwards. I felt like maybe they just, if they wanted to make more Bond movies, they could just start it over with a new director, new creative team, new cast, rather than try and milk the Daniel Craig thing for one more thing, because he doesn't look like he is very invested. And hello, Christoph Waltz is really starting to bug me. He actually starting to remind me of M. Night Shyamalan, because, you know, his big debut, you know, like with The Sixth Sense, his big debut was all about, oh my goodness, this guy's amazing, can't wait to see what he does next. And it was the same with Christoph Waltz in Glorious Bastards. Now it's just like, he seems to play every character he plays the same way over and over and over again, and you know, it really is getting tiring. I'm just like not interested in Christoph Waltz anymore. So there you go. Yeah, Spectre. Didn't like it very much at all, unfortunately. Saw the Oscar-nominated film Spotlight by Tom McCarthy. That's a very, very good drama. Lots of really good acting in it. I would recommend it. Saw the final Hunger Games movie, Mockingjay Part 2, directed by Francis Lawrence, who did the previous two in the series. He directed all of them except for the very first one. And this one I generally liked, but thought it could have used a little bit more humor. They had a great opportunity for humor in a scene where they're taking basically a break from all the battles that they're having to endure, and the two guys that Katniss is sort of torn between are talking while she's asleep, or at least they think she's asleep. And it would have been a great joke for one of them to say, yeah, she's got to make up her mind, it's her problem, something like that, and have a little laugh about that, but didn't happen. I'd read all the Hunger Games books prior to seeing any of the movies. Oh, no, that's not true. No, I read them actually after seeing the first one. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that's right. Yeah, I definitely read the second book before seeing Catching Fire, the film, because I remembered what the arena was like, and that was definitely the best of the series, the second movie. This one was fine. There were some good moments in it, and you know, I really am a big fan of Donald Sutherland as well as a lot of the actors in the movie. I'm glad the series is over, though, because I just really like Jennifer Lawrence when she's, you know, in something a little bit more lighthearted. We get to see her sense of humor. When she's all, like, miserable and everything's super serious, it's just not as much fun for me. I really like her in lighter stuff. Like another movie that I saw later on in the year. Then there's Bridge of Spies by Steven Spielberg. I go and see every Spielberg movie. In fact, the only Spielberg movie that I haven't seen in the theater since I think probably the late 80s was The Terminal. You know, I was kind of low on cash at that time, so I didn't bother going to see that in the theater, and I eventually did see it. But, you know, again, Tom Hanks. And I wanted to see this, you know, just because Spielberg, and it was a good movie. It's a good movie, but it didn't make the kind of impact on me that a lot of other Spielberg films have made in the past. You know, not surprising, given that, you know, I mean, I'm older now, and so, you know, it takes a lot more to surprise me and make an impression on me these days. Decent movie. Would I put it on my top 10 list? No, I don't think so. But you know, always pleased to see a new Spielberg film. I hope he keeps making movies for a long time, because you never know when he could pull out something really amazing again. So, a couple movies that I didn't go and see. A holdover from October was Crimson Peak. I'm not the biggest Guillermo del Toro fan. The films of his that I've seen are okay, but you know, I'm not super passionate about him as a director. I didn't bother going to see the one with the giant robots. Although it did make for a fantastic Honest trailer. If you watch the Honest trailers, that one is hilarious. So Crimson Peak I skipped, and I really wanted to see the dual performance by Tom Hardy as the Cray twins, the gangsters, the English gangsters. That was in a movie called Legend. I ended up skipping that just because, you know, it really wasn't in my budget. And I also have yet to see Creed, which is a highly acclaimed follow-up to Rocky, in which Stallone plays Rocky Balboa in a supporting part, and Michael B. Jordan, of course, plays the main character, the fighter. And I've read lots of good things about this movie, and people have really praised it highly. I just, you know, it was just, you know, I was sort of limiting the movies that I saw to, you know, for financial reasons, and so I ended up skipping that one. But I will see it eventually. I'm definitely going to see that one. So, there's my list for November. So my next video, of course, will be for December, and then I have one after that for January, and then at the end of this month, of course, I'll make a movie summing up everything new that I saw in February. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.